Okay guys, welcome back to my Debian email server tutorial part 4. So I just want to say congratulations if you're watching this tutorial and you've actually watched all of the other parts, all of the other 3 parts that is. If you have watched all 3 other parts of the video, you're probably invested about 3.5 hours into this series so far. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sticking with me this long. And I'm thinking this video right here will probably go for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I'm hoping to keep it on the shorter side. I'm kind of known for ridiculously long videos at this point, I think. So I don't know if this will be an exception, but I'm hoping I can clear up some final thoughts on this project, this email server project, and clean up things and get you guys hopefully some additional features and uses out of this. So this is going to be more on troubleshooting and cleaning things up and making things nice. And then also I'm going to touch on how to troubleshoot and get your system to work globally. So you'll be able to email like Hotmail or whatever if you have the infrastructure and you meet the prerequisites necessary to do that. So I started this video off with some slides, well, at least the series off anyway, with some slides. And I don't know, I didn't want to do the slides again because honestly, I don't like doing slides. I prefer demonstrations, but I think it helps. But I really just didn't feel like going and making slides again, so I just stopped at the drawings here in LibreOffice Draw. So I guess I'll start right in. And what this is this is a sort of a flow chart. This one's very simple. I've got 2 others to show you. So this flow chart shows the configuration that I have now. This is the server as I have configured it, and this is for demonstration purposes only, and as I have said hopefully multiple times in the video, this is completely wrong. Never ever ever do this. Bad idea. Okay, so this was the way I did this was for demonstration purposes only, so never ever do that. You don't want your client and your server on the same system, and ideally you don't want your database here either. So I'm going to show you a couple of other flowcharts that will give you hopefully a better idea of what you should sort of aspire to configure this for. So this is a good configuration. Well, I call it good. It's not, I don't know if it's necessarily good, but it's certainly better than what I've got there. So let me just move this back over to this monitor here, blow it up all the way. Okay, so you can see here that I've expanded the flowchart's complexity just a little bit more. So what we have is we have the internet, and then we have basically a DMZ kind of thing here. So you've got your dual firewalls, you've got a web server front end, and hopefully this guy here will serve as like your OWA if you're running Exchange. In this case, it would be something like Rainloop or any of the other ones out there. And then you've got your mail server right here, which is going to be your IMAP, you know, your Dovecoat, your Dovecot, your postfix, and all that. Basically, everything we've configured so far will be on this mail server, and then you have your clients, which all connect up to your mail server to get service. Right, so that's how it works in sort of a better scenario. And what we're going to be focusing on more today will be this web server front end. So if your system looks a bit more like this, that's probably a good thing. It's better than the alternative, but I'll show you what you should probably be aspiring to if you're going to try to put this in a production environment. So let me load this final file here. This would be the more ideal configuration, and it's not necessarily perfect either, but you know, you could certainly do different things with it. But you can see it's substantially more complex, and obviously this would be very hard to demonstrate to you guys just due to the sheer quantity of servers that could be implemented here, because this doesn't even show everything that should be in your environment. This only covers sort of the stuff that's directly relevant to the mail server. It doesn't even cover backups and you know, all that other good stuff. So what does this show? Well, you know, you got your internet here, you got your DMZ between the two firewalls here, and your web server front end, of course, is up here, and that's going to have the same role. But we've broken these two servers up now. This was the mail server, and now you've got IMAP and SMTP here. And I've broken off the database server into its own system, and I've broken off the management solution into its own system. So you've got Postfix admin and PHPMyAdmin running on their own Apache server on their own dedicated system, all by themselves. And then, of course, I've shown, you know, your administrator connecting up to this system by himself. So I've switched one of the clients over to an admin and you know, dedicated him a line into the server versus the other guys who, you know, ideally should only be connecting to the IMAP and SMTP to get their email and send and receive, and et cetera, et cetera. So this would be the solution we're going to strive for. And this is why I like the solution that I proposed in these videos so far, is because it's very, very modular in design, so it's really easy to kind of extrapolate what I've given you throughout these videos and apply them to this kind of configuration paradigm. So realistically, all you'd really have to do is, if you're watching these videos and you're following the tutorials, you know, if you have a database server that's broken off, when I tell you, oh, configure the database server in, you know, whatever video I did, I think that was 2, you know, you just switch over to that box and configure your database server. And when I'm talking about Postfix, you'd switch over to the SMTP box. If I'm talking about Dovecot, or, you know, you'd switch over to your IMAP box. But if you remember back in the day, you know, when you were trying to configure Yahoo email or whatever for Outlook, so that you get your email on Outlook instead of having to go to the website. Oftentimes you'd have smtp.yahoo.mail.com or mail.yahoo.com or whatever their address was, and then you'd have one for POP and one for IMAP. So that's kind of how that works, is you break them off and then, you know, you can communicate between them. And then, of course, you've also got your administration software here. So it's designed in a very modular way where you can break these different services up across different boxes. Of course, that's hard, like I said, for me to demonstrate, just due to the complexity of doing that, and, you know, the sheer amount of stuff I'd have to set up in order to get that done. It would take me forever to get the videos done. And maybe in a future video I will, you know, take to this level and really push it to this extreme here and show you guys how to do it, you know, like professionally. But the idea was to give you a really strong footing and a good place to start. So hopefully the prior videos have done that. So how do I have my systems configured now? Well, at this point, I think we've got them set up more like this. So this server here now exists, and so does this one, of course. These firewalls are a bit arbitrary. I'm not even going to go into them. And these two systems are on an isolated network, and I do have a pipe in from my client machine, my main computer. So all this is done through virtual machines, and that's the cool thing about all of this, is you could do these, you know, on physical boxes if you wanted to waste the hardware, but that's a waste of hardware. You could also put them in virtual machines. So you could have your IMAP, your SMTP, all in different VMs, and they could all cross-communicate. That's kind of a waste of resources, though, in a sense. You're wasting clock cycles and memory, because, you know, instead of just loading up the service, now you're loading up the entire OS and everything with it. Fortunately, if you're using Debian or a similar lightweight operating system configured with no GUI on these machines, the overhead that the operating systems will require will be very, very low. The even cooler thing is if you use a product like Docker, you could containerize these guys, and then you can get some really, really lightweight virtualization going on and host these servers where they're still segregated. Now, it's arguable, and I tend to agree with this, that containerization is less secure than full virtualization. Because full virtualization is just more encapsulated, in my opinion. I've heard stories of, you know, vulnerabilities in containerization where you can break out of the container and gain access to the root system, which is much, much harder to do in a virtualized system like ESXi or whatever else. Proxmox is what I tend to use. But the point is you have options, and you can get this done without investing, thousands of dollars in lots and lots of hardware. And the also other bit of good news is that these machines are so scalable and so lightweight that you don't need strong hardware in order to really do this. Depending on your client base and the runs on the database, that's really the tricky part. Is if you've got 5 or 6 clients that are all getting email from this, you can do it with 500 megs of RAM. Not really bad, right? But if you've got 10,000 users all trying to get email from it, you might want to scale up a bit, and you can, and that's the really sort of cool thing about the way this is done. But anyway, enough about the boring slideshow. Let's get down to the configuration side of things. So let's have a look at this is the original box here, and I'm going to clear this because that's got my it doesn't matter. It's nothing. You guys can see that. I'm not going to edit it out or anything. That was just the IP table or IP information if config. So there's this machine here, which is the original mail demo machine, and it is configured as it was left off in the last video. But I have since added another machine to this mix, and that will be. Hang on a second here. What did I just do? Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Let me just clear the screen off. Yeah. Okay, so the other machine that I've added is this guy here, and I've SSH'd into this box because this machine has no GUI whatsoever. This is going to be our web front-end system, and I've already installed Apache on it, so let me go ahead and cd into Etsy, and then Apache 2, and I'm going to put my predecessor / here. And I also want you to note that I am logged into this box as root, and this is also a big no-no. Don't ever set your system up so that you can SSH into the box directly as root. That is incredibly stupid. I'm only doing this because it's a VM, and I'll probably the machine will likely be destroyed after I'm done with the video. So, for me, okay. For you, if you're putting this into production especially, not good. Never, ever, ever SSH into a box as root. That should not be possible. Because root's a very easy username to guess, and it obviously makes it exponentially easier to brute force into the system. So that having been said, if you don't see me put in sudo or whatever, it's because I'm already running root. I might do it instinctively out of force of habit, but typically if I'm running as root, I don't. So if there's an inconsistency of when I do it, that's why. I just wanted to point that out so that there wasn't any confusion. So now that I'm in here, so what we want to do now is, first of all, let's make sure we've got our SSL set up. So I think we need sudo apt-get install, and then live Apache 2, and then mod. It might not be one that you have to install. It might be one that's just enabled. Let's check it out. So let's go to cd, and then mods available. And in here we should see SSL. Yeah, SSL. So it's already installed. And I just installed this, so that means that SSL is installed by default, which is good. Okay, so let's check to make sure if it's enabled or not. So we'll cd into mods enabled. And in here, if we don't see those two config files again, which we don't, so yeah, those mods are not enabled. So we're going to do sudo, which we don't need to do here, but I'll do it anyway. A2en mod SSL. And we should get this, and now when we ls, we should see that they are in fact in here. So now we have SSL, and that's a very good thing. We're going to need that because We always want to do SSL configuration over 443. Let's go ahead and CD back out of here. And we're going to have a look at our ports.conf file. So we're just going to buy and then ports.conf. And in here, we're just going to comment out the listen on port 80 so that we don't get a problem with port 80 asking for privileges, or we don't get a problem for nothing being there to answer on port 80, even though Apache's technically listening on port 80. And then we're going to go into sites enabled. So CD sites enabled. We're just going to delete 00 default, and then we're going to do A2 EN site, I think it is, and we're going to enable default SSL.conf. Okay, so now if we ls in here, we should see default-ssl.conf. And by the way, these are just symlinks. That's all they are. They just point to the other one. And these programs I'm running, these A2ENs, these are just programs that make these symlinks for you automatically. You can actually go and create the symlinks manually if you want. But in my opinion, it's just easier to use the A2EN programs if you remember them all. So now that we've got the proper mod enabled, and we've got the proper port enabled, and we've got the proper site enabled, technically speaking, we should be able to restart Apache. So if you do system ctl, which you'll need to do sudo for this in your case, but if you're not running as root, and then restarts, and then Apache 2.service. There we go. And we should, if everything went well, get this. And if we do system ctl and then status and then Apache 2.service, we should get no errors, and we should see that Apache is active and running. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we're just going to check to see if there's a couple more mods enabled that we need. So let's go back out, cd /, oh actually we're in the right spot. So we need the cd and then mods -enabled. Okay, and in here we're going to look for our proxies. And I don't see them right off the bat, so let's check and see if they're installed. So let's back up and go to mods available. And we're going to look for proxy. Okay, yeah, so we have a couple of proxy.conf files we need to enable here. So let's see, we're going to run sudo a2en mod proxy _html. And let's ls this and see what we have. Oop, let's actually ls /a mods enabled and see if we see the stuff we need in here. Okay, yeah, we have proxy.conf, proxy HTML load, proxy load there. I think we're still missing something. So we did an A2EN proxy HTML. What other ones do we have? We have proxy _HTTP we also want as well. And oops, we want to check the enabled mods and make sure we get HTML load, HTTP load. Yeah, I think that's all we want. We just want HTML and HTML load, I believe. And I think we're also going to want to go ahead and grab our PHP 5 for the future, but I don't think we need it right away, though. I don't think we're actually going to need it for what I'm going to demonstrate today, so I'll hold off on that. Alright, so hopefully that's got everything and this will work. Otherwise, I'll have to go back and correct myself, and hopefully I don't have to do that because that's frustrating. So anyway, we're going to go to sites enabled again. And in here, we're going to have a look at this file, so by default, and we're going to add some lines in here. So what we want to do is, we're going to want to come down here and go SSL and then proxy and then engine space on with the capital O. Actually, I don't think the capital O even matters. It's that way in my reference file though, so I don't think it matters though. SSL proxy check peer cn on, and then SSL proxy check peer expire on, and then proxy pass slash we'll call it mail conf, okay, and we're going to go with we'll put another slash there, and then we'll put a URL, okay, and the URL is going to be a URL that points back to your original server, so this guy here, okay, so we need to get its IP address or its host name. In my case, I'm just going to use its IP address because, actually no, I can use its host name because I configured the host file so on this other system. So let me show you what I've done here. Right, because if I go here, okay, I'm just going to save this file temporarily and show you the host file. So let me just cat and then etc hosts. And you can see here that I've given it the host name mail.example.com and mail. Now this IP address on here, this is just for this virtual machine and on a virtual isolated network. So it doesn't mean anything to my external network. And that's why it's not actually communicating with my DNS servers at all. So I had to just create a host entry for it. So if I ping mail, I should get that IP address back, and you can see that I do get hops and I do get that IP address back. So this is going to work. So let's go back into our file, and if I go over here to our proxy pass, I should be able to put a space and then go https://mail dot example.com, because that's the fully qualified host name that I gave it. In this case, I could just use mail because I put it in my host file, so it's going to check there and find that mail is an alias to mail.example.com, which is also an alias to the IP address, and that's fine. But just to be correct, politically correct about it, I'm going to go ahead and use the fully qualified. So I'm going to tell it specifically to communicate over port 443. That's fine. And then I'm going to give it this sort of URL. So postfix admin/users. Now, I'm going to then add another line. So let's go ahead and do this. This is going to be proxy pass reverse. And we're going to do mail conf again. So the exact same URL, mail conf, okay? And then we're going to give it basically the exact same URL here. So I'm just going to copy that and put it in just like so. Okay, now at this point you should be able to save this file, and I will begin explaining what we've actually just achieved. So on our host system here, let me go over here, and then into our email here, we have postfix admin, okay, or into our web browser, we have postfix admin, okay. So I should log out of this. Now you can see that I can switch here to this user section, and I could then log in to one of the accounts here and change their password around. And I can't even remember what we set those up as. I think it was like Mr. Test, so maybe test at example.com, and then maybe I think test root. Yeah, I don't even remember what it was in the last video. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, you can use this section of postfix admin to reset user password. Now, my problem with that is all they got to do to get to the admin section is just change the URL around. That's literally it. So, you know, if you just delete that, then you're in the admin side. And I don't like that. That's not okay, right? So what I prefer to do, plus with this particular solution, you're giving users external to your network access to an internal page that really only should be available for administrators or people that are inside your network that you trust. And that's unfortunate. So how do we stop that and still be able to take advantage of this lovely little password reset utility that postfix admin has built for us? Well, we can create a proxy tunnel to that particular portion of our web page that takes advantage of the safety and security of our system. So what we have here is we have our web server right here, and this is the server that users will log into. So they'll log in here, and then we're going to create a little tunnel that goes over here, and it will only point at that one section of that one page. So users will not be able to access the admin portion or any other thing on that server. This is a trick that's often done with Tomcat, because Tomcat is less secure in many people's opinions than Apache. So in order to take advantage of the security of Apache, people will proxy their Tomcat installation so that users come in on the Apache and they get the Tomcat through the proxy, and therefore you're taking advantage of the Apache security while still taking advantage of the flexibility and power of Tomcat. So that's what's really cool about that. And it's also known to be utilized to bypass same host problems. Like, for instance, if you are using the Bosch protocol to connect a chat client in a Java chat client solution to an XMPP chat server, and the chat server doesn't reside on the same system as the XMPP server or as the Java chat client does, then you'll get an error. They won't want to communicate. So in order to get around that issue, you create this proxy tunnel to the Bosch for the Bosch protocol to travel over to connect up to your XMPP server, and it resolves all that. And I'll be actually showing you that in an upcoming video, because I have some more very exciting news at the end of this video regarding some future stuff that we're going to do. Okay, so that is kind of what we're doing. So let me show you the fruits of that labor now. So you're actually going to get to see my web browser. So let's go ahead and do mail conf here, and we should get. Actually, oops, cancel that. Z. Okay, so I know why. HTTPS : // Okay, there we go. And we should be able to go to advanced, and we should be able to add exception, and not permanent. We'll just confirm it for now.
So as you can see, I've got it working now, sort of. Where we are, so there was a major hiccup with SSL, and rather than go through all the mess of getting it to work properly, I decided to kind of side skirt it a little bit. And I'm going to show you guys kind of how I did that in just a minute. But this is what you should see if you've got everything correct. So if you've been following my instructions up to this point, you should have your server with your email configured with Apache, and this is postfix admin So basically what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to change your passwords and everything through a proxy that is configured on your web front-end server. Now that web front-end server should normally have an SSL-based configuration. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to cd into user, and then share, and then postfix admin. All right, now if we ls in here, you can see that we've got the postfix admin site tools. This is all the well, not tools, but the PHP files that make up the postfix admin component. So if we cd into users, this is the directory that we're getting when we get that users page. So how do we fix the broken issues that we have there? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to create two symlinks to these two folders right here, which is the CSS and the images folders. And we can do that by going ln-s and then // for up a directory, and then CSS. And of course, in my case, it's going to tell me they're already there. So I get file access, but for you it will create them. So do that once for CSS and then once again for images. And then once you've done that, you're going to want to back out of this, and we're going to need to go into templates, and we're going to have to edit the header. So if we do vi, actually in my case here it's going to need to be sudo vi, and then header .php, and then in here we're just going to look for these lines here. So you can see this if, print, else, these lines. Essentially, you're going to want to comment out the ones that I've got shown here, and I'm going to go ahead and make this big so you can see it better. Okay, so basically underneath this question mark PHP line here, just comment out this if line, this print line, this else line, and then this brace down here, this final brace. You need to make sure that you get that. And just so that I can do this, let's see, show number, I think it is. No, set number. Number. There we go. Okay, so now you can see the line numbers, which should match what's in your files. So you can see I've got the lines commented out, 16, 17, 18, and 20. And then also again down here for lines 27, 28, 29, 30, and 32. So 31 should remain uncommented, and 19 should remain uncommented as well. So you're going to want to do that, and then you're going to want to do the same thing for footer.php. And in here, let's see, is it the same thing in here? No, I don't think you need to even worry about it in footer. Footer is good if you want to remove items from your PHP My Admin page footer. So if, for instance, I go, let's see, back here to Iceweasel. If we go HTTP, actually, let's just go localhost, and then slash PHP, or not PHP, postfix admin. In here, you can see you've got this stuff down here. If you want to fix that so that it's different, you can come into, or if you want to remove any of that stuff for at any rate, you can do that here by editing some of these lines. So that's what's good about the footer. The header, of course, will get you this image, and it will also include that CSS so that this will show up correctly and be centered the way it is here through it. So that's basically it for that. Again, I actually disabled SSL on the server, the email server, so that it would work for me, because obviously this is a demonstration server and I haven't generated any certs. I'm still using the snake oil certs, which obviously
the web server doesn't trust. So when you go through the proxy, you're getting a SSL certificate error, and that's what the issue is, and that's why it breaks. So for you, if you've generated good certs, hopefully, or and installed the certs so that there's a trust relationship between the two and everything is working, then you should be good to go.
So the other thing that I was asked about in the prior feed for video 3, one person said that they wanted to see me expand upon SpamAssassin. So there's not much left to say on it, I think. I'm pretty sure I covered it in the video 3. But just in case, the important files are spam-c.conf, local cf, and I'll go over some of these with you. So let's cat these guys here. So spam-c-conf, okay, should look like this basically. And also, and this is basically setting this user account. So basically, these files are all in the posting that I made on Pastebin. So if you have any confusion about how this is done, you can always reference those files. They should be located in that Pastebin post I made, which is linked in the URL or in the descriptions of the prior videos, and I'll put it in the description of this one as well at the bottom, so you can find access to it. Now that file is huge because it has basically a copy of all of the configuration files for this entire project. So with the exception of the post, or what is the postfix admin stuff, I don't know if I'm gonna put that in there or not, because maybe I will at the bottom. I'll append it on there, I'm not sure. But it's kind of a big file, and I didn't bother to break it out into a lot of little files because I'd rather you have one big file to dig through than 500 links. So I don't know what the more convenient method would be, but they're labeled pretty well. I took the time to actually comment them and label them properly, so you should be able to distinguish which file is which and where everything goes, hopefully, because I labeled them by their path, their full path, not just by the name of the file. And also, I want to specifically state that the file configuration for this is specific to Debian. I am not 100% sure on what changes may be needed to support this on Red Hat or Arch or any other platform. I did it on Debian. That's why I'm teaching it on Debian. I have no clue how to do this on the other platforms. It may be very similar. It could be a little bit different. I don't know. If somebody wants to comment on that, or maybe post a link video on translating my tutorial onto the other platforms, absolutely. I totally 100% support that effort, and I think that somebody out there should do it. But it's just a bit much for me to take on is all. So let me just cat the rest of these files for you, and you can see where we're at with it. So if I cat local.cf there, this is what that file looks like, and I don't think I actually edited this file very much at all, if I remember right. We did, I think, let's see, I think I put report safe 1, trusted networks. I don't think I edited this file much at all. I think maybe I commented out these guys. But just double check and make sure it looks like this. This is another file that should be in that list. And there's one other file we can concern ourselves with, and it's an Etsy, and then default, and then in here there should be I think there should be a spam, that's a file, so I'll need to buy spam. So there's a SpamAssassin in here, and you need to uncomment and make sure that this says enabled equals 1. That's important in order to enable it. And then these are some options, and I don't think any of this stuff really was commented out at all. I know cron needs to be uncommented and set to 1 to make sure the cron job runs, but it should be good at that point. So let's check out the milter, because that's the other big one here. So there should be milter. Okay, and in here you should have options. This is, I think, in here by default. and you really shouldn't need to change it. This just makes it so that SpamAssassin will always reject emails that it marks as spam. And this, I think, was also in here by default. So I think right here you just need to add the -1, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll compare your default file to mine, and you'll see that's really the only major modifications. And I think down here I commented these lines out just to make sure that they were specifically denoted. The owner, you can see I used that same milter, and I also gave group ownership to postfix, so that they both can manipulate the socket it creates, hopefully. And then I also set the socket mode to 660 so that group and owner have the same permission level, and then everybody else has none. And there's no sticky bit or anything like that on it. And then this, of course, right here is the directory path to the socket file. So once you get that, you should be good to go. Oops. There we go. Okay, so at this point, the only other thing that you really need to concern yourself with, apart from that, is its link into postfix, which we do. Let's see, cd etc postfix, and then in here we have main.cf. So if we do my main.cf, if we scroll all the way down here to this big long chunk of stuff, right down here, let's see, that's that spam demilters. Okay, right here. This is the important bit right here. Spamass slash spamass-sock. So that points to the relative path of that directory that I showed you before. And you probably could actually put the full directory in here if you want. I don't think that I needed to on my actual production server, but you optionally could for sure do that. And also don't forget to change your snake oil certs to real certs, hopefully, if you want to get this thing on the public internet, which I will be covering at the end of this video, some tips on how to get this thing publicly served. So that's that. So hopefully that clears up any misconceptions or any confusion about SpamAssassin. If there are still questions, please feel free to ask. It's perfectly fine. If you post it in the comments, any questions, feedback or whatever, I am more than happy to read it and even do bonus videos on it if need be. Definitely ask questions because I'm always looking to improve these videos. That's the whole point of making them. So your questions are very, very welcome.
So with that in mind, I was going to do a web client video or a web client portion to this video, but I kind of decided against because the web client that I deploy is something called Rainloop, and the way that I deploy it is different, and it works sort of together with other components that I haven't talked about yet. And I'm not actually going to go into that in this video because it's just the scope of that is whoa. But doing that, deploying Rainloop and other tools like that into a web server and then having them connect up to your email client is very, very easy to do. It's not hard at all. Basically, you just extract it into your root directory for your web server, and which is normally var/www, so /var/www, and then in there you've got your root directory in Debian, and then from there you can just access it via your web page, via your web browser. You just go to that web page, and then you can run through the setup process, and it's normally pretty straightforward. And if you've done everything correctly and you've got proper certs in place and everything, you should be able to attach to it via SSL, which is the way that I would definitely recommend you do it. And then you should be able to use your web front end. So that's the gist of how that's going to work. But I'll do the video demonstration portion of that a little bit later on. So I don't know if I've let it slip or not. I can't remember if the content, I think I've talked about it before while making these videos, but I can't quite remember off the top of my head if that content got cut or not. So all of this, these videos so far have sort of led up to building an email server. And you guys probably think that at the end of this email server here, that's it, you're done, you've got what you needed, and that's great if that's all you want. But this particular setup that I'm actually building out is going to lead into something much, much bigger than just an email server. We're actually going to be building quite a few servers here in the next couple of videos that I will be releasing, hopefully in a reasonable amount of time. And it will be really, really cool, and I think a lot of people are really going to like some of the stuff that we're going to be doing because it's pretty great, and it gets you a really, really sweet server that is completely free and open source and does a lot of really cool things. So definitely look forward to that and stay tuned. I'm not going to say much more than that because I don't want to overcommit, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into some of that because the things that I have been building while making these videos are nothing short of impressive, in my opinion. So, so definitely, if you're interested, follow along with all these videos. I encourage you to keep watching and keep working on this stuff. So I guess I'm going to wrap this video up with a few more things here. So the first thing I'm going to tell you how to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about the troubleshooting componentry here, how to work with your troubleshooting of your database. So this is on the actual email server, and I'm just going to use it as a web client here because it's easier. We'll just pop Iceweasel up. So if you're unfamiliar with these tools, so this tool is going to be phpMyAdmin. So we're just going to do localhost and then /phpMyAdmin. And this is going to give us a, okay, this is going to give us a direct access to our database. Hopefully I remember the password to this. Okay, good. So in here you can see your databases. So you got your standard MySQL information schema, performance schema, and then you got phpMyAdmin and postfixadmin. The postfixadmin database is the one we want to concern ourselves with. So if ever you've got an issue where you've got, you know, something that's stuck in the database or something weird that you just can't figure out, you can come in here and you can mess with this stuff, and you can see in here that you've actually got the different tables for your database, right? And you can actually see the data in this table. You can also check, you know, do things like privileges and add users for your database, and just generally manage your MySQL database. This is fantastic if you don't know or you're not as familiar with SQL statements and such. And I can go into a demonstration on how to do it via the command line too, but this just makes a really nice and simple way for people to manipulate their systems here. You can see here the two users we created, and you can also see here how the passwords are actually stored in the database. So they are not stored in plain text, which is as it should be. They are actually hashed with a salt, and so that's the most secure way, I think, to store passwords in a database. So that's fantastic. So yeah, this is what phpMyAdmin is. It's just a MySQL tool to hook into the database. So to show you how to do this via the command line, if you don't want to use this tool or for whatever reason just don't have access to it, or you maybe didn't install it or whatever, you can, I think it's here, LX terminal, yeah. So you can actually come here and you can type mysql-u for user, and in our case the user's root. It shouldn't be for you. You should have come up with a different user, but in my case the user is root and the password is root. So in here you can do show and then databases, or actually I think it's show database. Oh no, it is databases. Okay, so in here you can see that it's drawn out the different databases right here. So you can actually tell it you want to use postfixadmin, and it changes your database, and now you can do show tables, and you get a list of all the tables, and here's our mailbox. So for this you need to do an SQL statement, so select star from and then mailbox, and actually at this point you can see here, which I may be able to blow this up a little bit. I still think it's going to look all broken, but it draws a table on here to the best of its ability. But you can see the different values here. So that's how you manage it manually from the command line. If you want to learn more about MySQL, you can go to W3 Schools and look through there. So let's see. This is W3 Schools is a great site that I use to learn different languages. So if you come down here and you can find Learn SQL right in here, it should give you, all the different SQL statements and some examples on how to use them. This is really great if you just want to learn some quick stuff. Otherwise, you can literally just Google how to do things. And you can also go to, I think, MySQL. Actually, I think if I just do MySQL, it'll take me to it. But there is a MySQL official site, and they actually have some documentation on here that you can use to learn how to do different things on these systems. So it's not really that hard to do. And really, as a postfix admin person, you shouldn't have to mess with your database too much. Generally speaking, you should never need to use this tool. But just in case you guys run into a strange issue and you need to troubleshoot it, I thought it was a good idea to touch on it. So the last thing I think I really want to touch on is how to get your server production ready, as in on the internet, and can email things like hotmail.com or outlook.com or Gmail without going to the junk mail folder. Not all of this I can demonstrate, unfortunately, because some of it is just, you just have to call people. But a lot of it I can demonstrate. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to make sure, first of all, you got your static IP address. I do not think there's a way to do this with a dynamic DNS IP address. So you're going to need, you're going to need a static IP that points to a legitimate registered domain that's in your name. And you're going to want to set up your email server to be on that domain. So your domain name needs to match your registered host domain name, which needs to point to your IP address that's static. So to get that to happen, what you need to do is after you buy your static IP address from your internet service provider, if it's possible, which it isn't always possible on residential internet, you'll need to purchase a domain name from a domain name provider, or if there's somebody who gives them out for free, I don't know. I use companies like GoDaddy, domain.com, and they all have them pretty cheap. You can get a cheap one, I think, for like $8.99, $10.99, or about right around $9 or $10 a year usually, if you're clever and you get a cheap one. But you want to buy that, and then you want to go get a cert, and you can get a legit cert for free from Let's Encrypt, and you can also look into StartCom. They're the people that I use for my cert, and they give out a free one as well. But and I think they're taking new registrations now, so I'm not sure on that, but they do give out free certs, so you can try it out and see what you can do with it. And hopefully you've seen where I pointed out where you install your certs when you get them from the from StartCom or from Let's Encrypt or whatever. You'll get your certs, and then I've shown you an Apache where you plug those things into in order to make things work the way you want. So beyond that, you're going to need to contact your ISP, and you're going to need to tell them you want a reverse lookup record. And what that reverse lookup record does is it's going to point your IP address to your domain name, and it's sort of like a way to verify you are who you say you are, I guess, to email spam engines. They'll reverse look it up, and if your domain name, your IP address doesn't point to your domain name and vice versa via reverse lookup and forward lookup, if that doesn't match, then it looks like you're a spammer or somebody who doesn't have a legit server. So definitely do that. Unfortunately, I have nothing I can really show you on that other than you need to call your ISP and tell them that's what you need. If they say we don't know what you're talking about, tell them you want to talk to Tier 2, because it's a pretty trivial thing to get done. My ISP did it for me for free, and they should know how to do it. But they're only going to be able to do it if you've already got a static IP address. So you'll need that first. Otherwise, you're probably going to get hit with being stuck in spam hell again. So that's what that is. There is a website you can go to called MX Toolbox, I think it is. And yeah, this one here. And right here you can look and check your domain name, and you can also check to see if you're on a blacklist, because you probably will be, especially if you're using a residential IP address. If you're on a blacklist here, usually it's like SpamHaus or one of the other ones. So if it is SpamHaus, I think it's called SpamHaus. Let me see. It's Spam, H-A-U-S, I want to say, something like that. Yep, there it is. Okay, in here, if you're on this blacklist, you're going to need to go... I gotta remember where it is. There's a place where you can go in here. Blacklist removal. There it is. Block. So in here you can enter your IP address and you can request that they remove it. Just fill out whatever form they give you and tell them you're setting up a server, and just be honest and tell them you're not a spammer, and hopefully they believe you and they remove you from the blacklist. If you screw up and do something wrong, you're going to end up on this blacklist again in like 5 seconds. So that one is very finicky, and it's usually the one that's causing problems. So hopefully that explains how to iron that out, and that's all the tools that you hopefully require to get yourself off of whatever blacklists you're on and get yourself serving emails. Once I got this stuff taken care of on my side of things, my production server began working almost immediately as if by magic. So I can absolutely send email from my personal server sitting in my house on my own domain to Hotmail and Gmail and whatever, and it doesn't go to the junk mail folder, it doesn't get blocked, I get no bounces or anything like that, so it works perfectly. So yeah, definitely a good thing to check up on. The cool thing about this guy here is it actually checks against a lot of different kinds of blacklists. So once you put your server name in there, your domain name or whatever, you can see exactly what blacklists you're on. And if there's more than one, you just follow those steps basically for each site. And yes, it can be an absolute hassle to do. So this is not for everyone. I completely agree with that. That this is definitely not something that just any person should try to do, because it's not easy to maintain this thing. Once you get it going, you kind of set it and forget it, and it's not too bad. But when you got to upgrade stuff, or when you get stuck on a blacklist, or if your IP address ever changes, then it's kind of nightmarish, and it can be brutal. But other than that, it's not really that bad. Yeah, so that about covers it, I think. I want to say it does. And so hopefully you guys have learned a lot, and I appreciate you sticking with me throughout the video series, and I definitely appreciate the wait on video 4. I know that it took a while to get it out. And just had a lot of stuff go down this year. Fortunately, I got most of that stuff ironed out and we're good to go, and I've also been working on some more projects that I can't wait to make videos and show you guys the rest of the stuff I'm working on. But yeah, so if you've got this thing working, then you are awesome, because that is a lot of work, and you're officially in this for probably, I don't know, almost 6 hours now, I want to say. I know the first 3 video recordings were like, I think 4 hours, I want to say, maybe 3.5 hours by themselves. Let's see. Yeah, probably about 3.5 hours by themselves. So this will probably add about an hour on. So you're probably in about 4.5, 5 hours, something like that, depending on how long this is. I haven't actually strung it up yet, obviously, because I'm still recording it in bits and pieces. So, but yeah, that's it for this. If you guys have any comments or questions, anything else you want me to explain further, if you want to ask me any questions about this, or anything else, please feel free to leave a comment. Comments I always welcome, because that is the #1 way that I get feedback from you guys right now. And feedback helps me make better videos and tells me kind of what you guys want. And also a big thank you to the people who did comment already, because you guys are the reason this video is out right now. And it's not because I'm spiteful or whatever about people not commenting. I don't care, but it motivates me to know that people are watching and interested and want the next video.
to hear that, it works. It works 1,000% with me. So definitely tell me when you want to see videos, because I will post a lot more frequently when you do. Just out of a desire to make my viewers and fans happy. You know, that's kind of where that is. So yeah, look forward to the next video, and I will see you there.